guys. It's so good to be here. It's my third time at Bioinformatics Community Meet-up, Poland. And it's really fantastic. It's really great to see so many young people really curious and interested and enthusiastic about bioinformatics. And what is the role of bioinformatics in our changing world and in our society, and what are the paths forward for all of you. So we've gathered some opinion leaders, some bioinformatics avengers here to try and discuss and talk about some of those issues that are facing bioinformatics and new technologies today in our changing world. So we've got with us today, going from left to right, Błażej Szczerba, an Associate Director of Software Engineering at Origin. We also have Małgorzata Panikowska, medical doctor and clinical geneticist at the University Clinical Center in Gdańsk. Klaudia Szklarczyk-Smolana, a doctor of medical sciences and co-founder and CEO of IntelliSeq, which provides flexible bioinformatics solutions for human genome data interpretation and reporting. And Tomasz Mojtel, Business Development Manager in Healthcare Sector at AWS for the EMEA region. And my name is Tomasz Kościułek. I'm a research team leader at the group of Structural and Functional Genomics at SANO, Center for Computational Precision Medicine here in Kraków. So in the beginning, I said that I'm very captivated and excited about such a huge interest coming from kind of a grassroots initiative. A lot of people are excited and asking questions about what the future of bioinformatics is. But also, I guess, what we're all about in bioinformatics, and this is something that I'm constantly reiterating, is we're about also building bridges between different specialties, between different disciplines, and understanding the needs and wants of, ultimately, we want to see change in healthcare. So getting this perspective and getting those unmet needs, understanding them better, I think this is a great starting point. However, not enthusiastic that may be, but maybe let me try and get a kind of a different perspective, kind of from the top down now on the same issue. And I'm looking at you, Klaudia, since you have also this medical experience, but you're representing a company that inherently kind of tries to solve this problem for the people. So if I may kind of go back to the original question of the role of bioinformatics in modern medicine.
I always think about this meme that's very common, so maybe you also saw it already. There is a meme with a startup being symbolized by a small boy, like little boy, and he's so enthusiastic and very happy with his innovations, with the approach that he will have to the whole healthcare system by improving it. And then there's a huge old monster, like scary creature standing behind him, and and there are only names around this monster, like regulations, lack of tools, lack of time of clinicians, healthcare systems, differences between different healthcare systems, and I guess also mental limitations. Yeah, that healthcare space is very traditional and very slow as it comes to innovation. So it's really hard. I'm struggling a lot to explain it to my investors that the visible changes will not come within months, because we need to not only bring tools that will speed up and improve the work of clinicians, but also convince the whole healthcare system that it's really something that makes a change. And before knowing, and of course I've learned it through multiple interactions with people from healthcare systems, different representatives, not only clinicians. But before knowing that, I was very enthusiastic by myself, and I'm still such a person as it comes to talking about the meaning of genomics in the context of medicine. Yeah, so we call it genome-based medicine, and this is actually, I still believe in it. I'm not seeing it yet as widely as I would like to, but I still believe that in next 5 to 10 years we will start observing it even in Poland. The whole idea is to bring genomics to being a part of not only diagnostics, which is already happening within the somatic cancer space, but also bring genomics for the predictions, yeah? So not only offer it to unhealthy individuals, but also to healthy ones in order to personalize the way how they should live so that they could improve their life. So let's imagine that you might be in a high-risk group for certain diseases and you don't know it right now, yeah? You can learn it from your genome, and also from other non-genetic data like your blood tests, your ancestry, your age, your sex, so on and so forth. And altogether, this data may improve your way of living we can do it by building algorithms that will generate the results, meaning the risk for certain traits that you may have. Many people don't know, and I don't mean only diseases like heart diseases, dementia, or any other serious diseases. We can also predict very practical traits. Like right now, we're working with one of the US-based hospitals on building an algorithms for prediction of post-surgical inflammatory states. So if you're in a high-risk group of developing such a post-surgical inflammatory state, then your clinician, knowing that prior to the surgery, can offer you anti-inflammatory treatment so that you won't develop this inflammatory state. So this is very practical. This is very day-to-day, daily clinical decision-making. But of course, then there is a question, is it regulatory based tool that can be offered to hospitals, or is it a research tool? Of course, it's a research one.
May I make one little comment? So you touched a very important issue here, that not only we as a healthcare system are slow, incorporating innovation slow, but also there is this mentality or maybe phenomenon of guideline loops. So novel technologies are not incorporated into daily practice because they are not in the guidelines. Why are they not in the guidelines? Because there is too little data to support their inclusion into guidelines. And so we are in some sort of a vicious circle. And me, myself, I sometimes catch myself in this kind of thinking that I don't want to use anything that hasn't been validated on 100,000 people, and it gives me like very certain black and white information for the patient. And I'm a big fan of preventive genomics, but I see so much resistance because these are kind of risk assessments. And what if the question I never understand, but they ask me, my opponents ask me, is like, but what if risk assessment is wrong? I mean, it's a risk assessment.
Exactly. Yeah, so you also mentioned like that there is a huge amount of kind of a legwork to be done in order to build the larger understanding, and also some regulatory hurdles. And Claudia, you mentioned your collaboration with Boston Hospital, and I would like to maybe continue on that topic, if I may, a little bit, and this is kind of to compare and contrast collaborating with international institutions versus the challenges of collaborating nationally within Poland. Can you maybe share some insights?
There are certain obstacles as it comes to genome-based medicine to collaborate on the local market. First, the main one is the lack of financial resources and the lack of systematic approach to the topic. Following on what Gosia said, in order to make preventive genomics more relevant and actually to transfer it into genome evidence-based medicine, you need huge amounts of data. Where to get those huge amounts of data where we don't have in Poland even a profile, an average profile of Polish person as it comes to their genotype. Yeah? There were some programs to deal with it, and it ended up with sequencing up to, if I'm not wrong, 5,000 genomes. Whereas compared with UK Biobank, where you have right now more than 500,000 genomes being sequenced, the paradox is, the funny thing is that many of them are Polish because many Polish people live in the UK. So actually we could grab something from there, but you need to have mental readiness and financial readiness, and I'm talking right now on a government level, to implement such a program so that we have our own reference genome as it comes to Polish society. And later you need to bring the tools to hospitals like sequencers, hardware, so that they can start transferring biological samples like saliva or blood from their patients into the digital data, so the DNA code. And then you need to educate physicians, because very often cardiologists, oncologists, they're not very aware of genetic data standing behind the disease. They're treating patients, yeah, they're aware of symptoms, behavioral symptoms, but require also additional knowledge about genetic data. And this is not a standard, as far as I'm aware, this is not a standard as it comes to education on daily basis for clinicians in Poland. So there are many challenges as it comes to the local market. However, so that not to be so pessimistic, right now there are initiatives like Agencja Badań Medycznych, which will be in English, Agency of Medical Research. Yeah, this is an initiative that gives funding to local Polish hospitals to build so-called digital medicine centers. And this funding enables local hospitals to bring the hardware in-house, like sequencers, but also bring the staff that will deal with this hardware. Because another paradox in Poland is, like, right now many institutions, scientific institutions already have sequencers, but the problem is that there is no funding for service, there is no funding for people who will actually do the sequencing. So these are, like, I call it cemeteries, yeah? These sequencers just stay there and are not being used because there is nobody who could use them. That's tough, but this is how it is. So it's, I guess the challenge is the more systematic approach. But it's not only Poland. Right now in the US, a lot has changed since the last year, as you know, as it comes to politics. So I'm not very sure if US is much better as it comes to the awareness of genome-based medicine.
Sure. Yeah, that's very fair, and I think really what was very clear from what you're saying is that the challenges, like we in Poland may be facing still some challenges that are due to overall kind of economic or legal situation, but it's not only unique to Poland. Staying on the kind of topic of global opportunities and local challenges, if I may, I would like to direct my next question to Błażej. So Artigen is a global company which is deeply rooted in Kraków. Why is Poland the right place for Artigen, and is Poland a good place to start a career in bioinformatics?
Thank you. Great question. Maybe I will be here with better message than my previous speakers. So yeah, the Kraków is a great place because we have a lot of universities, a lot of great place where you can learn. And what makes Poland for last few years a great place to start businesses that can operate in global economies, that still we have a lower cost of living. But we have a great education, great language skills, great software skills. This is something that Poland is really recognized in the world. And as saying globally, and maybe touching the point that Claudia made, in my career, I was working with, for example, Genomics England, so about this monster, about laboratories and what is happening with when you want to include the genomics-based medicine into country normality. It's also ethics, because people also are afraid about how the data are stored, who has access to it. So the UK Biobank is one example. There's Our Future Health also example. There's a program that we as Argen was working with Genomics England, the generation study. So they're trying to screen over 100K newborns to find if they have any rare diseases and prevent from developing the disease. So yeah, back to the main topic of this question. We work globally. We are, I think, appreciated by how hard we work, what is our preparation for this work, but yeah, also working in global economy, in global clients is also, we learn a lot how to build the products. This is something that we also discussed before this panel. To building a product is another challenge. Services, by providing services for companies is much easier. By building a product, building a solution that can be sold repeatedly, it's hard work to complete. Does it answer your question, Tomasz?
I guess, yes. But maybe kind of to continue from a different perspective, I would like to also to direct this question to you, Tomasz, since you're representing AWS in healthcare, and you have the company indeed is operating in the entire region. So what's your perspective on the career in bioinformatics, or the kind of human talent source coming out of Poland?
I think this is, if you look at like global rankings of Polish IT people, like especially top coder, I think some of you may know what the competition is. We kind of are inclined to stay at the top. And this, for no reason, there is companies like Roche, for example, Roche Diagnostics, who set up their solutions centers. So they are actually building products here. Something about clinical space. Then, of course, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they've opened here their own regions, and this is due to the fact that we are a wealthy nation when it gets to IT personnel. And I think this is, this stems kind of from the history, the famous Polish School of Mathematicians, right? So they raised the bar really high, and then we had a communistic time during which we had no access to technology, but we started to perform in the theoretical space, and this is how computer science really took big. So yeah, clear. Me being Polish people, I see lots of Polish colleagues at AWS, plus of how active our Polish colleagues are in the IT space. And then we have also companies. So, we have companies like Ardigen, we have companies like IntelliSeq, building on that. Toki AI would be another example. Znany lekarz, so dog planner, and so on and so forth, right? So there's a growing list of companies that are really doing very well, and also at an international scale. And I think
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you touch upon like those hard competencies, and we got, I believe, a very kind of a diverse group of people here coming from all sorts of different backgrounds. So you mentioned those hard skills in AI and maths that we through our historic hardships have excelled in somehow, but now looking at the market as it's developing, in particular, like in bioinformatics and biomedicine broadly, how do you see, like, what are the core skills that are kind of necessary now to be developed, and what skills kind of are most bring the highest return on investment, if I may frame it in that way?
So, as I'm representing healthcare space, right?
Right.
And I think these are profiles that are somewhere sitting on the interface between the technology and the clinics. And so in other words, having you here, bioinformaticians, and maybe thinking how to make an impact in a healthcare space, learn biology, learn as much of medicine so that you'd be in a position to ask clinically relevant questions, right? And how to do that, this is really a big question. I think this is something that we could definitely improve here, as to build consortia between medical schools and technical universities. I think this is something that is fueling, and then you can think about, ecosystem, building a system of startups around specific projects. But I think this is kind of currently heavily underappreciated. So yes, there is single examples where it works. I'm not saying it doesn't at all, but there is no like systemic programs that support this.
I would like to agree with you, Tomasz. So a friend of mine who's sitting here, and actually she's the reason why I went to the United States for an internship at Harvard. When I asked her about her impressions from States, she told me that the most valuable thing or important thing that she learned was that we are no worse here than these super innovative people in States, and people are the same. The ecosystem is different. And I couldn't agree with that more, because that trip for an internship in Boston was my first trip to States. And what struck me the most is exactly the ecosystem and the structures that exist for cooperation. And this is where I see the strongest, at least until now, advantage of States versus Europe, and for sure Poland, that the cooperation of people from different fields is very structured. And there are these even administrative positions, like kind of coordinators, who will be just just coordinating the cooperation, scheduling meetings, calling people to make the projects keep on progressing. So I think that what we miss most is structured framework for cooperation and personnel just taking care of building these structures. And we heard some nice speeches from innovation incubators here, startups, but we need much bigger scale for this to work, because we have the people, we have manpower, but we need to build the system to maximize this potential we have here. And also not to be underestimated is the potential that is in people who emigrated. Maybe these changes that are happening in the world right now are the moment to try to get them back here, to try to seduce them into Poland again.
Yeah, this is a great point, and also I think, as a country, we've been already going through at least one cycle of that with the whole initiative of return grants aimed at people who are working abroad to kind of bring them back to Poland. Myself, I was a beneficiary of one of those kind of funding schemes, and indeed, like gathering, expertise from all over the world and then implementing those best practices in Poland. I think, there is a lot of work to be done on that front anyway. And since we're speaking about like competencies, Claudia, I would like to go back to you, if I may, since you're kind of representing some of those the two worlds in a way. Do you see that in bioinformatics there are different needs in terms of competencies in the commercial setting, the clinical setting, or the academic setting?
Yes.
What's your take?
Yes. So we, as IntelliSeq, we've been not on the market, but as a company for more than 10 years. So we're not even categorized as a startup, but at the same time, we weren't generating revenues from the very beginning. We were a technology-driven startup that was mostly fueled by research grants for the first 5 to 7 years. We were building the technology. And back then, the bioinformaticians that we were seeking for we were seeking only for hard skills, like knowledge of bioinformatic tools, self-independence as it comes to thinking, but also seeking for solutions where there are no solutions. We had a project that was co-founded by European Union. We figured it out by ourselves, and we were developing tools for, firstly, rare diseases, diagnostics, later pharmacogenomics and other areas of genome-based medicine. And then now we're at the moment, the toughest moment ever as it comes to our whole history. I know that later there will be others, but right now we're in the moment so-called product market fit. So we're actually confronting our technology with the market. And it turns out very often that the market either needs something slightly different or wants something totally different, yeah? And we need to build from the scratch new tools because there are constantly new areas of genome-based medicine that are just rising. And what's right now not added, because I'm actually right now seeking for senior bioinformaticians who not only know how to build bioinformatic workflows and how to, in the end, generate from the FASTQ data, so the raw data that comes from the sequencer, the final report for physician, but bioinformaticians that are also aware of the fact that we're no longer a technology-driven startup that builds beautiful tools, but we need to sell them. However hard and tough it sounds, we are a company that needs to generate revenues. It means that our bioinformaticians also need to learn about the market, learn about the competitors, what other tools are on the market. Need to understand that it's not only technology right now, but it's a product, and it's different thing, yeah? Product means you need to explain it in a simple way to others. What is the value proposition? You need to sometimes attend the calls. You need to present the company in front of others at the conferences, meetings, so on and so forth. And very often, the scientist type of bioinformaticians is not willing to do it, especially in Poland, and that might be, of course, controversial what I say, but I'm also from science world. I resigned from being a scientist because it's hard to combine it with being an entrepreneur. And very often in Poland, the perception is that, okay, so if you become a business person, it means that you are a weak scientist. And it's some sort of a critique, yeah, oh, you're right now in this bad world of selling things, yeah? Whereas nobody understands that we're actually offering products to super intelligent, and it's a real pleasure, yeah, to talk with scientists, to talk with clinicians, to talk with molecular pathologists all over the world, and to actually get the feedback that you already said, that we're not worse than people in the US. We're actually sometimes even better as it comes to being smart. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but but it's an opinion, of course. But anyway, very often what I'm seeing as a CEO of a company is an attitude that I'm a bioinformatician, which means my task is to build workflows. And I don't give a damn about market, business, who are our customers, who is actually the end user. I don't have time for it. I'm only focused on this. And this is what, of course, if you're in a big corporation, like mentioned by you already, we shouldn't be mentioning probably, but there are big corporations that are also seeking for bioinformaticians. So if somebody wants to be only focus on bioinformatic tools, then big corporations would be a great place to work. I've heard a lot from our bioinformaticians that, oh my God, the speed here at the startup is much faster, and you have to do a lot of multitasking, yeah? Just to compare, like previously, some bioinformatician was involved only in building certain part of the workflow. Right now, he or she needs to build the whole workflow, validate it, and then also participate in testing in later tests. And it's like it's much more. Yes. It's much more, and very often it doesn't mean that you will receive more money. That's the trickiest part, yeah? Because we're a startup, and people very often are not aware where does the money come from, yeah? If we have money from our investors, it doesn't mean that we need to burn a lot of money and, yeah, have fun and just try to build something without any responsibility. No, it's even worse, because these are not money generated yet from our customers, but these are money that were given to us with a trust, yeah? So that we need to look very carefully on the spendings and look very carefully not only at hard skills of our employees, but also look at their culture of work, look at their involvement, engagement, and the fact that they are open to develop additional skills outside of the bioinformatics ones.
Great.
Now nobody will want to come to work at IntelliSeq.
Well, maybe they're gonna want to work for Origin, but let's.
Thank you, Claudia, for saying what you said. But you know, there's a place for everyone. But with such attitude, it's more likely you get paid, definitely, and probably you also end up with the work that makes your life much more interesting, and your work will be something that you like, not just spend time there. And the question was about core competencies, like definitely some software, bioinformatics, knowing of tools, knowing of paradigms, knowing of newest technologies like LLMs, RAGs, vectors, everything what is connected with current AI explosion is great, but I totally agree. This attitude that you build something that it is not going to be run once on your laptop, but will be rather something that you run from the start. You're starting it from the scratch. You developing it, validate it, test it, and the scientist, can use it for years, like building a small but product. It's great that is really appreciated by any client, any cooperator, and also understanding other areas, so if you are bioinformaticians, but you want to understand a little bit of software, a little bit of biology, and if you are a software engineer and you want to ask this biology questions, this is something that is, from my perspective, really appreciated when I work with people, and it's more likely you will have fun with your work in the end and get hired in the end.
Great, but then listening to both of you, it made me realize that I suppose the question was ill-posed to begin with, because ultimately, I guess, in commercial or academic or clinical settings, there are all different types of roles and jobs that maybe, there may be a commercial setting that's very academic, and there may be a very kind of academic setting that requires a lot of the soft skills and a lot of other competencies that help to get your message out there.
And if I may add only one more thing, so that, again, not to sound so dramatic, it's also, as it comes to startups, if you're looking for a job in a startup, you would need to have this special trait that you want to make an impact. However cliche it sounds, it really is, that you're very close to management board, it's very easy to implement changes in a small environment, so you don't feel like a part of a huge machine that you cannot impact. In a startup, it's a lot of multitasking. The requirements are much higher as it comes to your set of skills, but at the same time, it's a lot of impact, a lot of fun also to be exposed to people that you couldn't be exposed to in a huge company, yeah? And you can just, like, this week you're working in Poland, next week I'm sending you to the US to meet with Baylor Genetics or somebody else, yeah? So this is an opportunity that, of course, requires certain traits and readiness, but if you're seeking for such emotions and memories, then startups are a great place to think about as it comes to work.
So you've rang a specific bell when comparing now big giants versus startups, and I would say it depends on the culture, right? So now we, by that I mean AWS has a very peculiar culture in that we see ourselves as a startup, and we say every day is day one, right? Which means we are just starting. So again, it all depends.
I still want to kind of get the clinician's take on that, because I mean you already highlighted some of the kind of initial systemic challenges, but and highlighted the necessity for clear communication kind of across disciplines. But maybe there is something else when it comes to competencies and making kind of an impact coming out of bioinformatics in the clinic.
So what I would emphasize on top of what my colleagues said is networking. I think it's a great event to be in, but I personally think I benefit more from being here because I'm the only clinician probably meeting a lot of people outside of my field, whereas you have a meeting of people from your own field. It's a great thing to meet up, but I think it's even a more important thing to go somewhere unobvious. So whether you have a chance to attend some conference on something only slightly related, maybe it's not your biggest interest in it, go, open the door. You might not understand what the people are talking about, but you will know at least what topics they talk about. Maybe you meet someone who has some overlap with you, or just opens door in your mind of possibilities, opportunities. So as I already said, I was very dissatisfied to discover how clinical genetics work. Like when I'm, seeing patients and doctors, and when I'm seeing patients as a doctor, it's kind of not using all the cutting edge knowledge I have in terms of technology and tools. So I sought out to learn about bioinformatics, and I enrolled myself on a course in it, got some very basic skills. I will probably never be a specialist in that, but it opened my mind what techniques out there, who deals with those techniques, who is a specialist, who I could reach out to, talk about cooperation. And I think I elevated myself to be a partner in the discussion because I understand what the other side of business does, what they can offer me, what is technically possible. Maybe I'm not a specialist, but they can explain to me and I will understand. So the other way around, you might not become medical doctors, but building bridges, learning a little bit, will make you partners for discussions. It's bridging. It will open door, novel opportunities. You will be coming probably with tools that are more easy to be employed in clinical practice. So I think networking is a great thing, even some kind of relationship might not matter now, but then a certain challenge comes up and you know which door to knock, where to go, whom to ask. And I think it's very important to emphasize that because, as I said, we don't have it very well structured in Poland, and we also are kind of obsessed being super top specialists in narrow fields. And I was a victim of this kind of thinking for a long time and also had a personal struggle inside me because so many things are interesting, so how can I focus on one little thing? But I start to see it more of an asset. Of course, you can place yourself as a specialist on, left small finger and be only specialist on that, but there is value in being more interdisciplinary, building bridges, and the world has become so complex right now that I would say both is needed. Both is needed, and it's not additive. Having knowledge in two fields is not additive, it's actually multiplication, I would say. So it's not easy math.
Wow. I mean, if only more clinicians had this kind of approach, gotta say, from my own experience, that is rarely the case. But let's talk a little bit, because we're slowly running out of time. So I think I have kind of just the time for one final topic, and I would like to focus a little bit on kind of solutions and implementation. So Tomasz, I have a question for you, kind of to start with. What challenges are we facing when it comes to implementing bioinformatics solution in practice, in commercial and in clinical settings?
97% of clinical data is trapped. Actually, it's siloed across the landscape of IT solutions. So this is how the real world situation is. And this is thanks to the fact that systems like HIS, so hospital information systems, are actually, these are a sort of black boxes in the end for end users, where you actually load all the, say, clinical history of the patient, but a specific vendor prevents you from getting access to the data, right? So if you think where most of this, the lion's share of the data is, it's actually residing there in the hospitals, trapped and siloed. And I think we had this already theme here in the discussion regarding the validation, right? I mean, because in the end of the day, you may have a clever solution algorithm, and you would like to showcase its relevance for a specific use case, right? And then you have to run that algorithm. First of all, maybe train it on a clinical data set, right? So this is the first blocker. And it's interesting to know, I think, was it last year in November or so, there was a Nature Medicine paper where they did a validation on medical devices that were using AI in the States that got FDA approval, right? And it was like 40-something% that was actually validated on synthetic data sets, right? And only, I think, maybe 15% or so on prospective clinical trials, right? So this is very telling, because then what it means, there's no guidelines around that, right? So US was mentioned here, you know, the technically they are advancing in many aspects when it gets to application of the technology, but when it gets to compliance and the regulation, which is really critical, right? Because the question is about the responsibility in the end. Who is responsible for, you know, if it's a support system, yes, but there was another study on radiologists where the kind of bottom line, I can't recall specific figures now, but there is a strong correlation between, so in the end of the day, radiologists supported by AI were talked into specific diagnosis because they relied, when there was a correlation with local features, they kind of tended to, local meaning algorithm was pointing to a specific structure on the image, they would tend to think that there is something, right? Because, you know, if you're a radiologist, you know there's lots of artifacts and you have to interpret this. This is something like with this morphology, 7,000 rare diseases, and you have to learn, say, 1,000 maybe at best. And this, you know, eye of a radiologist is trained to recognize specific features, right? On the other hand, we have, of course, now with advance of AI, Gen AI systems that are much, much better, because they were trained on a massive amount of data, so they kind of outperform this. So, so specifically like in AI or Gen AI field, it's all about the data, it's all about access to the data, and actually 90% of all solutions, AI-driven solutions, are in the field of radiology, right? Because we have this massive amount of data, and there's specific startups like AI-Doc, for example, they train their models on millions of records, right? So diagnostic, so image, so basic collection of images and diagnosis, right? And I could so much actually, if I'm thinking about my time prior to AWS, when I was part of University Clinics Charité for a number of years, I was responsible for their genomics and genetic diagnostics platform. And we came up with few cool solutions for rare disease patients, right? So I was actually lucky enough to work with a person who Peter Robinson, who invented human phenotype ontology. I think some of you may know HPO. And then we came up with the solution that would actually really impact on diagnostics yield for rare disease patients. And the first moment I was part of the team where composed also of geneticists, right? It was so hard to convince them even to run a validation in the first place, right? And it's kind of clear because, okay, it's not about believing or not. They are kind of so much drawn into routine that they have no really free capacity, right? And you know, as a part of university clinics, you're doing also research, your projects, and on top of the things, you really have no capacity at all. So, okay, we succeeded in that context, and then luckily I had clinicians lining up front of my door, willing to use that, but the kind of initial phase really to understand the burden resulting from like a routine clinical work and find ways. You know, this is about exercising your social skills. So social skills, I think, are more and more important. And I think you mentioned another point, which is also important, is with the advance of AI, AI will have an impact on medicine and how we are performing medicine. In that, I believe that clinicians will be kind of executing a more of a systemic approach, right? So what it means, I think there's specific examples for that actually working. So there's something like which is called molecular tumor board. That means if you're an oncologic patient, you need a number of experts. You know, it could be endocrinologists, it could be cardiologists, neurologists, and so on, to interpret, and basically you have to put these minds together. And I think this is what is actually happening with advance of AI, that you will have this system who would be not really geared to only answer a question about is this dot in my lung significant, but they would also likely make a connection with genetic variants that are there, with additional diagnostics workup that is existing and patient history. And I think this kind of integrative medicine, this is something that, you know, it's a really exciting field that is upcoming, but again, we need to kind of untrap the data, right?
So I'm hearing quite a few key and crucial limitations. What, availability of data, communication, kind of between different groups of stakeholders, legal and regulatory challenges, and generally challenges related to the use, overuse, or underuse of AI, right?
I mean, there's one thing that needs to, so one actually, program on the political agenda, which is called European Health Data Spaces, EHDS in short, right? Which is actually, probably within the next, say, 4 years will be actively implemented. And that is actually allowing then startups, bioinformaticians, researchers, clinical researchers in general term, to use the data for their own purpose. So we are talking about the secondary data use, right? So once this will be implemented, no one knows really how in detail, because it will probably be linked to some kind of national initiatives in the end. That would definitely strongly impact on say, innovative threats of building solutions that are using data as an asset.
Great. So there is really something to look forward to.
There is hope.
There is hope. Yeah. So following on one of those points, why is it really that, why are you locking up 97% of your data and other people can't use it?
Public hospitals are really big monsters, big, slow monsters. There is so much regulation, so much like delays in implementing novelties. It's just discouraging. So I don't know why we keep the data, but I would assume it would be a tremendous effort to make changes to our software to unlock it, because these softwares which tend to be aimed to use in any department at the hospital, they already are so difficult to be used. Software which is difficult to be used, it's just a disaster, right? Like, software should make your work easier. So I think, I don't know, we are in some kind of a rabbit hole now from which I feel like there is no way out.
To shine some bright light maybe also on this, because we do have in Poland initiatives that were called like regional centers of digital medicine. So luckily for us, also as AWS, we are building one of these. And this is going definitely to impact in a positive sense, right? Yes, it's clear this data is trapped in his systems. And the reason why it's so difficult to untrap is because these are proprietary systems. So as a hospital, if you want to build an API, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of Polish zloty. And just because these, companies that are offering, once you're practically trapped as a hospital, because these systems are monsters. So it's not something like you can implement over a weekend. It takes a significant effort, and then you're basically not in a position to change it, right? So maybe there's like 4 vendors, and you have choice. You make this kind of educated guess at first, and you stay with them for practically rest of your life, right?
No motivation to improve.
Of course, no, that's clear.
So we're at the beginning still of the whole road as it comes to Poland, but look at other countries. There are some examples that it might work. Look at Estonia, very small country, and they have already their own national genome initiative. So I don't remember the number, but a significant part of the population has been sequenced as it comes to whole genome sequencing. And they have also centralized healthcare system so that no matter where you go as it comes to, I guess in English it's called ER, so SOR in Polish, they have all your medical data. In Poland, we still, if we go to another hospital than our own, they know nothing about us, yeah, and this is very dangerous outside of genetics, yeah, they know nothing, yeah, so if you don't tell them what drugs are you taking or what diseases do you have, they can make wrong decisions about you. So it's doable. The country, the Estonia country is showing that it's doable. But hey, their president is a molecular biologist by training, so maybe we should start with thinking in such way. Thanks.
I would just like to comment on that. We actually do have P1 with a history of prescriptions, etc. But there has been a discussion that, and in some way, as a doctor, I would like to see patient's history, but as a patient, I can understand this point of view that I don't want any random doctor anywhere I go to know my entire history of prescriptions, etc. So this is the question of privacy. Like, I mean, if you have issues, and I think in Poland it's maybe cultural, that you take psychiatric drugs, or you have had an abortion or whatever, because we know it's a topic that raises so much emotions here. You go to a doctor for a completely different issue, sore throat, you don't want them to know your entire history. So I think it might be a cultural thing that Estonia has dealt with. Yeah, and here it is what it is. That a patient, for now it is so that a patient, when he comes to see you, he has to, as when I worked as a GP still, like maybe 2-3 years ago, he would have to sign, go to his patient.gov PL website, sign that anybody can, or that the specific doctor in front of him has access to his history, and then the doctor would see a history of prescriptions. Proactively the patient had consented to it, which is of course a big pain if you have time limitation, etc.
So from perspective of technology, this is of course solvable. I mean, in terms, you're in control of your data as a patient, and I'm thinking about some implementations also like Germany. There's practically pretty slow. They managed now to implement the e-prescription, right? So they are even behind, Poland efforts on the digitalization front. But then they have also means now a system that lets you to select and opt in or out for, specific, when I'm talking about the clinical history. But I realized one thing. So this is really like, if you're thinking, who is the end customer, right? So you're thinking about maybe young people or people, mid-aged people who are using apps. They can dwell into the interface, understand the complexity, right? So that's really the question is, whom are you including there? There might be some patients who are not technology verse, and I think this is. I think we could probably spend an hour debating on that topic. So, but I want to just to specifically now make a comment, come back to EHDS, because EHDS, I mentioned the secondary data use that will be actually implemented via the virtue of this legislation. But then the idea of EHDS is exactly that if I break my leg in Krakow and I'll fly into Paris, that doctor will be able to see that part of clinical history connected with that particular injury, right? So this will happen. The question is only about instruments of control that would need to be still implemented.
I'm scared to think what would happen if the data leak. Yeah, so of course, good luck, but yeah, we know that.
You would be scared because hospitals have HIS systems, hospitals have PACS systems for imaging and so on. So you would be scared if one was to run like an audit through all these. I'm not talking about Polish hospitals, but in general terms, European hospitals. You'd be scared what the result of that would be. Seriously scared.
Yes, so just to add here, we are operating on the Google Cloud. Sorry for not AWS, but everyone knows that there are different clouds, and AWS is for sure as equally great as Google one. But in general, cloud and local installation. So if we are cooperating with hospitals in Poland, the challenge is that they're not in cloud, and they cannot, even due to internal regulations. It's not that Poland has some regulations. It's also internal hospital law that disables them to actually send some samples through the cloud. So then the question is, okay, so where do you store your old data? Where do you archive them? And it's on local servers. People still think mentally that when I keep something on a visible on a machine, that's safer, yeah. Whereas it's not, yeah. It's like I've heard histories like that there were some issues with the server itself, and the server broke, and then all the data is gone because they didn't store it as some sort of a copy on the cloud. So yeah, that's another obstacle.
For a second, no, because I think this is really brilliant, but still a very academic debate. I think when it gets to security, I think we should look at specific use cases and examples of the implementation. Right, there is national systems that are being run in a cloud. I'm just saying any cloud. We as AWS, I think we did really decent job in migrating the Ukrainian government to the cloud in that first phase of the war. Top 10 Ukrainian banks, including Privat Bank, are hosted, and virtually that happened seamlessly, right? And of course, yes, there were lots of hacker attacks that need to be prevented. But this is exactly this kind of control services are, there is no business for cloud providers if the services that they're providing are not secure, right? So this is our job zero to make sure that the technology or the platform is safe.
So clearly there are dozens of topics that each warrant a very in-depth discussion, and we will not have the time to cover all of them. Since I already gave the microphone to Błażej, I'm going to just ask you again, do you have any kind of last comments that you want to make? before I wrap it up?
Can you remind me the question?
Yeah, sure. The original question was about challenges that we're facing in implementing bioinformatics solutions in commercial settings and
Okay.
in clinical settings.
Yeah. So from my perspective, from commercial perspective, maybe something that Tomasz also mentioned, but from a bit different perspective, silos of data, but not that we cannot access this trapped data, but when we have this data already, there are genomics data, clinical data, imaging data, and if we can connect this data together, we can do much more and much better and get much better results when we build machine learning models on that or any other statistics analysis. So this is one challenge for bioinformatics engineers nowadays, and something that AWS helps a lot is performing scalable processing in cloud. Something that sometimes takes like days on private computer. It can be achieved in hours in cloud, in any cloud, let's say. Yeah, and maybe the last thing that also was mentioned here, the regulatory standards. I am working, and Arjun's is mostly in drug discovery, not in clinical, not in development. But when it comes to development phase, the challenge is it has direct impact on the patients in the end. So we need to put the quality at first. We need to meet the regulatory standards when the drug is going to the market, when the diagnostic is executed. So this is really important. Having a high quality in your work is, as bioinformatician, is very important.
Great, thank you. Can I kind of wrap it up? I got that.
Almost. I just wanted to stir a little bit of drama at the end, but it's a very, I would hope it's very close to a yes or no question. So we are talking about the data, about the challenges, regulatory, taking care of quality, and so on and so forth. But I wonder, since probably all of you have some exposure to the US market, scientific, commercial, I wonder, in the current political climate, we all see some changes, disturbances in US academia, in US healthcare. And in bioinformatics, most of us, I'm pretty sure, is relying on the open data available in NCBI, which is hosted by the US. Do you think there is a realistic threat to getting cut off of those resources or limiting the access? And are you somehow thinking already about securing the data that you are already using and the access to it, just in case if something happens, right? Like we can see now that day-to-day things can change pretty rapidly, and it sounds like a big challenge for academia and for industry at the same time, and healthcare even more so.
Volunteer?
I know that some European institutions are already mirroring NCBI resources just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I've been to a European conference recently, and that was exactly the topic of discussions, like about organizing to the copying of the resources.
And I guess this is what's happening, and what will be happening, and it is very natural, right? So like with certain resources that are being available globally, you know, let's just take the PDB, the Protein Data Bank. There are different mirrors of the Protein Data Bank coming from different large organizations and large institutions. So maybe this is just going to be the kind of the first step in actually making those resources for community-based resources just be even more widely available rather than not available at all. Yeah, so we heard a lot, and surely there is an enormous amount of topics to be covered when talking about bioinformatics. purely because we're such an interdisciplinary discipline and we're such an interdisciplinary crowd. There are, as we already all heard, there are many challenges on each of the fronts, and we need to navigate the emerging kind of clinical landscape, the emerging technological landscape, the emerging regulatory landscape. But I think as it became very clear also, there is no kind of universally good or universally bad solution to be approaching bioinformatics. There is certainly a need for hard skills, for hard competencies, for excellence in all of those areas, but there is also need for good communicators, for people who can integrate those different disciplines, who can communicate with other experts, and there is a lot of challenges that we need to face as a community, but ultimately I see this as great news, right? We gotta say, we gotta craft the future of bioinformatics, and we get to craft the future of what this area, this discipline and this industry, what it's gonna look like in Poland. So thank you all to all the panelists for this great discussion today, and thank you all for joining us. Thanks. And now Agata is going to tell us. Oh.
So yes, so of course, just like for all the speakers, we have like a little treat for you. Astrobucha, the T-shirts from KMS, everything is here. I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. It definitely got longer than planned, of course, but I think we could do it all the rest of the day or even the whole weekend. So there is never a really good place to put a break on that. So thank you a lot for all the perspectives that all of you have shared, because I think there is a very unique combination of experiences and competences that you brought that is really like a good mix of everything that is needed to really make bioinformatics effective and to consider the applications from all the sides. Not just looking at the data in your laptop, but thinking about what kind of impact you want to make and how to make it happen, how to make it robust and reliable. And once again, thank you. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did.
Thank you for organizing.
So just to wrap it up, to release you for our networking part in Hala Lipowa, so that you could grab some food, some beer or some other kind of drinks.
And continue the discussion panel.
Sorry?
And continue the
And
discussion
continue
panel.
the discussion panel, yes. Okay, so this is a small self-advertisement, but I think one of the things that I'm drawing from all the discussions that I had over the last year with all of you and outside of bioinformatics community and here during the panel is that we need not only technical skills, but we need to be able to convey the message of what we do, how we do it, and what does it really mean for the other people that we are trying to impact. So this is very humble attempt to try to explain bioinformatics to non-bioinformatics people, which I've been warned by Tomasz before that it's very difficult, and I have to say that it's really true. But for those of you that speak Polish and are outside of bioinformatics fields, and I know we have quite a few people like this here with us every time on a meetup, you can try to have a look at the YouTube interview that we were doing with Dawid Dobropolski, who's a nutritionist, and he's very devoted to busting the myths that are showing up online about health, about nutrition, about all kind of clinical diagnostics, weird probiotic solutions, and all the most extreme kind of diets and their impact on the health. And I think it's really great to see that those people also start to ask questions and don't treat bioinformatics anymore and machine learning as black boxes, but start to understand that they need to understand in order to not pass the false messages to the patients that they're working with.